What's up? Welcome to day 2 of the vloggers.
We're Israel vloggers. That would be
Israeli
IV
vloggers
for short. We're up on the balcony too. We got in a little late today. It's dark.
Yeah, we did. It was a long day. It was a good day. It was a long day. Where do we start?
We went to the first place we went to. We drove forever.
The pits of hell. The gates of hell.
Went to Caesarea Philippi, didn't we?
Yep. Which the Jews at the time knew as the gates of hell. That's what it was, like a horrible place.
Yeah, it had a big old pit, cave-like looking thing where they had that temple right in the side of the rock.
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing about all that was, first of all, and right in the side of the rock, you could see arches.
Yeah. Well, that was from the temple that they had made.
Right. Yeah, but it was all out front, and in the back of it,
Yeah.
you got this humongous rock, and on the back side, it'd be just more windows or type things that are just sort of carved out in the side of this humongous rock.
Yeah.
It's all goats running around up there.
Yeah. What's that verse that goats will be separated from the lambs?
Matthew.
Isn't that interesting that they were running on top of the gates of hell?
Yeah. So there were different parts to this temple. They would offer sacrifices, again, because of false gods. You had sacrifice, I think one of them was to Zeus, and I mean,
Zeus was one. That was wild. It was like the temple of Zeus.
So you had all these different spots that they could sacrifice, and why it was referred to then as the part of the reason it was referred to the gates of hell, which was the interesting part, was because we read that passage in Matthew right before the transfiguration story in Matthew chapter 16, where Jesus is asking, you know, who do you all say that I am? And then and I think it's before that, it's where Jesus explains or says, you know, upon this rock. That was the other thing we learned, you know, the Petros compared to the Petra in Greek, meaning rock. Peter was Petros, which was rock. Sometimes we want to say pebble, but it's to me a rock. And then the Petra, which I'd heard explained before, that really never really made sense. It's a compilation of rocks that make this, but when you saw the side of that hill, it was huge, wasn't it?
It was a huge rock. It was really cool, and like layers and layers and layers.
It looked like, that you put one, which is where those goats or sheep, whatever they were up there, were
I've
running
got
around.
a video of it. They're like, because it's like ledges, and it's like rock, like one wrong step and they're like plummeting to their death, and they're just like pew, pew,
so that
jumping.
is Petra, and makes more sense. And that's where Jesus is going to build his church, not on Peter, but Jesus is that Petra. And that means, because of where they were at, Caesarea Philippi, that the gates of hell, that cave, that temple area, were not anything that it stood for, which is Satan, wasn't going to prevail against it, which gives you this great depiction and illustration or visual of what happened. I thought that was neat or cool. That sort of made things like pop.
Yeah. It was interesting as we were looking at the different just false gods that they were sacrificing to there. Pam, one of the women with us on the trip, said, I think it's interesting, she just called them all as different forms of Satan, which I had never thought about, like Zeus and Baal and all the different false gods and idols, Buddha, you know, whatever, that people worship, as those being a form of Satan. And she said, anything apart from God is worshiping Satan, which I agree with, and I just didn't make that connection till today. Then she said, I think that because Jesus has all of those different names, like God has all of those different names that we can call him by, that Satan just wants to try to measure up, and that's one of the reasons that he might have all of those different idols to be called by. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. We talked about.
And again, we don't know for sure, but it was mentioned by our tour guide again today that because all these things are happening in Caesarea Philippi, even though it's 6 days later, when Jesus goes on top of a mountain to be transfigured before Peter, James, and John, could very easily have been that mountainous region that we were actually looking at. And so we found a couple of spots that were clear, that you could stand, that were really green.
Well,
and
they
vibrant.
were living in this rock, this like brownish red rock. There's no living thing on it. There's this gorgeous patch of green grass, like just open grass, like a little cylinder type oval shape that was just beautiful, and then some trees around it. And then the other side of it is just dark dirt again. So we were like, that would make sense. And it's overlooking the gates of hell. That is what they referenced. And so for that moment to happen, when Moses and Elijah come back down and this whole, like, Jesus transfigures and all the stuff happens, and the whole time they're able to, like, overlook this area that's been so evil.
And then y'all broke the law.
100% we did. And Uncle Stephen has FOMO because of it. So our group was, supposed to stay together. Whoops. Well, Pam and I saw another path that we thought looked fun because we didn't know where it went, so we figured we'd go see. And the whole time, mind you, we've been like looking at this patch of grass, and he's been saying, you think we can get up there? How do we get up there? And we took different paths to try to figure out how to get up there and never could figure it out. And then Pam and I just happened to venture off, and he stayed behind. And
I was a good boy.
well, we found the Nimrod Mountain is what we found.
Nimrod Fortress is where we were at.
And there were like 3 gates that we were not supposed to go through. Like clearly there were gates blocking it. But we just wiggled on through all 3 of them and then climbed up. It was like just a rolling hill of like acorns that we like surfed through to get up. But we got to that patch of grass. Like that's what it led to. And we were like, oh my gosh. And so then we did the happy dance and Pam sang a song and we took a few selfies and then came back down and met up with our group, which then we got lectured for leaving. But it was so worth it. It was awesome.
But then we wound around to see the temple of King Agrippa and sort of how all that was made there. And you could sort of begin to see a town and how everything sort of worked together. And so that was all, again. And how they were, that was probably the other big takeaway for me was our tour guide, talking about that they set up a synagogue to worship, but because they chose to do it a different way, that it was not true worship. And that theme will pick up because we went to another place for the tribe of not the tribe
Dan.
but the
Dan.
it was the place of Dan, the temple of Dan. I was gonna get it right,
From Genesis.
that again talks about that's where when the kingdoms split and Jeroboam comes into play, that he chose not to continue to allow people, well, not continue to allow, but Jerusalem and the temple doesn't become the main. If it's too far for you to travel, then he had 2 separate temples or altars that he built so that they could, for convenience, just go there.
Mm-hmm.
And all that was false. They had steps that you weren't supposed to do. That was against the commands of God. And
all these details in like the Old Testament laws that were very strict and had to be followed a certain way, he broke every single one of them for convenience, for their own comfort. And that just took the concept of worship, it just emphasized to us and showed us today that like worship is never about us. It's always about the one that we're worshiping. So even if we're worshiping in a way that we're like, we know we're worshiping the right God, but we're doing it in a way that is glorifying to us and more convenient to us, rather than with the purpose of worshiping like with a pure heart, a pure spirit, then it's false worship regardless.
which puts in what we talked about, puts in the quote worship wars that happens in America. Contemporary, traditional, is really all, I mean, it's an unbiblical argument to be having, because those arguments are not based on what God says worship's supposed to be about. It's based on the fact of what my selfish desire of what type or style of worship that I want. And it's not about coming and worship. Now people will say, well, I can only worship Jesus when it, no you can't. I mean, if you come, and we talked about that, we say, and it says in scripture too, that you're supposed to go or come to worship. It's not the responsibility of the people at church, it's not the responsibility of the worship leader to get you or lead you in worship, though that's what we say they do. You're supposed to already be coming to worship. You ought to be prepared. So no matter what style, if you're coming to worship, then it really doesn't matter what type of style. Yeah, I got preferences. That struck me pretty good today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a conversation. I even remember as a kid coming back from youth camp that you came with us onto one of the Fuges, and we came back and we'd had all this fun music, fun worship. It was the best worship ever. And we come back and we're singing hymns, and I'm like, this sucks. And I remember you saying, well, it's not about you, so it doesn't matter. And I was like, yeah, but I'm a part of your congregation, so it does. Like, I'm the one singing here. And you're just like, no, it's not about you. And at the time, I thought you were dumb for saying that, because I was like, well, you're just old school and you don't understand. But as I've gotten older, I've seen that, and even, you know, today too, like, it just, I get it.
Because you can't get lost either way.
Yeah. Well, and even the other extreme of like, I've been to the churches that have the people that are jumping, dancing, squealing, like flailing their arms, and like whatever, if that's the way that they actually worship. But like the reality is, there's people that sit in the pew and like just mumble hymns, and there's people that jump and scream during worship, and they're both going to hell because neither of them actually have a relationship with the Lord. And the outward expression does not mean anything if the inward devotion is not there. And we had talked about, like, when I was at Passion this year, Jackie Hill Perry got up and called that out about the worship, and like the worship is awesome and like it's great and I want you to be moved, but like you might have felt an emotion, but like, were you delivered? And that really struck me and has not left me since I heard that. I've seen that in like being in young adult ministries and like seeing like different young adults navigate that on, well, I don't sing that way. I don't jump and scream like that. Do I raise my hand? Do I keep it down? Like, I don't know what to do. And it's all this just false visual expression that really we shouldn't even be seeing, because like it doesn't matter. That's strictly between you and God. Well,
for me, it's a heart issue.
Yeah.
If I'm coming to worship, and again, that's active. I mean, that's what we're coming to worship. And all aspects of what should be contained in a worship service are supposed to be acts of worship for you, even when we're praying. and somebody might be leading that prayer, you as an individual still should be participating in that prayer because you've come to worship. And I think we miss that because we really don't come prepared because it's just something we do. We got to go here, and it keeps mom, or the preacher asked me, so I'm gonna go, so he'll leave me alone type. And we don't come prepared to worship.
I think we've become too relied on our leaders.
Sure.
We rely, just like kind of what you had said earlier, like we're showing up relying on you to like move something in our hearts, for you to feed us as like the shepherd preaching, as our worship leader, to feed us and make us feel something. And we're just there trying to receive.
The Dead Sea.
It's the Dead Sea, exactly.
Which means you're dead because you like, I think you used the word delivered. You're not delivered. You're not changed.
Yeah.
I mean, there needs to be a change about who and what you are.
Well, and that's two parts, because there's part of like, yes, we should. The whole point, part of it is to come and be filled up again and fueled for the Sabbath, for the week. I get that. I, especially working at Disney, oh my gosh, being in like that drought of non-believers, like by Sunday, I felt like I was crawling through, like army crawling through sand to get to church, because I was so dry and exhausted from the week that I had. Like being with non-believers is just exhausting. But then at the same time, while I was receiving, there should be an outpouring of giving, not to anyone else from a service standpoint, but just to the Lord, of like, that is my time of devotion and worship. And that is an act of giving in and of itself.
Great example is a water pump. If you have a dry pump, then you have to pour water into it to prime it. But it still takes a long time as you pump that handle for water to come back out of it. But a pump that may not have been used, for the week because you've been in work or you're back in the secular world, it isn't dry because you haven't been out of it for so long that, it may need a little bit of priming, but because it's still wet, that water comes flowing out, which is why, again, I think if you come to worship, then the worship leaders, the ministers or the teaching pastors, whatever, prime that pump just enough to get that water to flow back out for you. It's really the reason God said you're supposed to gather together for corporate worship. There is a purpose, and it's why if you study about the church, it's always about edify, encourage, strengthen. Edify, encourage, strengthen, those things, because that's what the body of believers do. It knits you back together. But for me, it's that ability to be able to give, but at the same time receive, like we mentioned yesterday. And so that it's just a big aspect about worship. I mean, there was things the Israelites had to do, but there was some active things that they received from that. They received the presence of the Lord. They actively came to the temple to worship because they had to bring sacrifice. I mean, and we don't do that. And I think that's why we miss out, and why we got to have certain things to make us feel. And again, to me, we live in such a sort of shallow world that emotion, not that that's not needed, but emotion is the measuring stick, I should say. Did he have good worship today? Not really, because I just wasn't moved. But did you come to be moved? Or are you one of those people that sits in your chair and go, I dare you to move me? That's not having a heart for worship. And I think you'd see worship services, no matter what style they are, be completely different if everybody that came. Now, I don't expect lost people. I mean, we're going to ask them. I don't understand how to do that. But if the believers would come prepared to worship, I think our worship services would be so different.
Yeah.
That some of us wouldn't recognize them, even though they were in the same place.
Yeah. I think that's good. Where did we go after that?
That's when we went to from Dan, then we went up to, we only went 3 spots today, and then we went up to top of the mountain where we got to see the 3 borders.
Yes, we did. That was cool. We saw Syria,
Lebanon,
and Israel.
So we stood in Israel. You could look that way and see Israel. You could look this way, see Lebanon, and this way was Israel. And that's where we were standing. So basically, you could have gotten to one point, obviously, and stepped 3 feet this way, been in Syria, stepped 3 feet this way, if you'd climbed over the barbed wire or the razor wire. It wasn't barbed wire, it was razor wire.
Which they wouldn't let us do.
I
wanted to touch Syria so bad.
The international lawbreaker wanted to cross over.
Listen, every single sign that's been read that says don't touch this, I've touched it. Wasn't interested in it until they told me not to. I'm like, why no?
Yeah. So we're still working on that.
You've done the same thing. Don't act innocent.
I did not climb up that mountain.
It's because he got stuck helping a little while playing
I
down
did.
those steps.
I did. I was being kind-hearted.
After we found it, Pam said, Steve's never going to choose others again.
Back to being selfish. No, it was a long day, but it's a good day. We're headed to Jerusalem tomorrow, and so
we're leaving the Sea of Galilee. I'm so sad.
Gonna see some. To me, really, the last 2 days have sort of set up. It's sort of been backwards in some ways.
Because we've seen the end.
Well, we've sort of seen the ministry of Jesus. You haven't followed. Our tour hadn't been chronological. However, as our guides mentioned, when you leave Caesarea Philippi, as he mentioned, it's a straight line to Calvary. And so I think that's the purpose of the order that they're going, but to be able to now go see some things. I think they told us we're going to the Garden of Gethsemane tomorrow, and so it's going to be cool. It's going to be good.
I'm excited. Good day. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll be back tomorrow. Vlog day number 3. Vlog day number 2